Welcome back to the TechnoCommunist Conversation. Welcome back to the Techno-Communism Conversation. Um, not wearing my usual regalia. I I left it at home. I'm in my garden, so to speak. The Verdi Park, which is not so far from my home, so I often ride my bicycle over here to do some work and this and that. And um, it's an unusual place. It's changed, I think, since I first visited it. It's become more um, like how you might imagine places like Tompkins Square Park in New York, or famous parks with unhoused people. There's at any given moment about 20 or so unhoused people who spend a certain amount of their time here, and um, I enjoy their company. Although for the most part they are, uh, despite being unhoused, people that um, entertain a lot of bourgeois ideology, um, and but you can't uh, you can't throw a frisbee in the United States and not hit an elitist, particularly if you're talking about European Americans. I'm going to talk about elitism in the arts. I was preoccupied with bourgeois art for a long time. I did not recognize that the only real role of art is to make the evolution irresistible, to create agitation, propaganda, to raise consciousness. Other art, things that we consider to be high art for the most part, is almost essentially valueless. No better than low art if it doesn't do those things. And I will. Wasn't sure what I was quite going to talk about, but I think I have a pretty good outline here. Um, the Oh, all right. Well, I was only going to talk a little bit about AI-powered music and art, or the next thing. If you think about um, cinema, it wasn't a concept in your great grandparents' time. It became a concept in the wake of a more powerful technological revolution that's going on today. I don't believe that it's an absolute certainty that the AI takeoff is substantively a more um, um, dramatic shift than the shift into industrialized modernity that occurred in that great grandparents' time. And the cinema wasn't even something that was real before the technology allowed it to become real. And this is now an art form that's more enjoyed than other fine arts, um, and equal to music, which of course existed from time immemorial. Um, and so the question of if we are in something approximating an AI takeoff, which we are, but unfortunately it's a techno-fascist AI takeoff at present. What kind of revolutionary art could emerge from this new technology? And if you ask um, AI people, they might talk a bit about a metaverse in which anything is possible. And I'll expand on that idea now. Um, uh, uh, from a cybernetic socialist perspective, but also ideas that might point to a glimpse of the future of fine arts forms unknown today that could emerge because of far more highly advanced computing. Um, Cybernetic socialism is, of course, a thing that I have made a study of in recent years, and I consider myself a cybernetic socialist. think that many of the cybernetic socialist thinkers are people more, perhaps like Salvador Allende. That's to say, people who engage with this more in an academic way than a genuinely revolutionary way, and who are not prepared to, as a result, perhaps take steps necessary to protect themselves from bourgeois forces, as Salvador Allende, who was murdered by the CIA and Western fascism, failed to do. And you shouldn't say that Salvador Allende failed, except first to say that he was murdered by fascists and replaced by fascists. And this is, of course, a recurring theme throughout 20th century and 21st century history to this day. But the difference here with Salvador Allende is he had built the framework for an advanced computing run planned economy that had real legs. And so fascists had to kill him, because this kind of thing can only be used for ridiculous and fascistic purposes, as it is today. And so, while I call myself a cybernetic socialist and kind of a disciple of Paul Cockshott, I can share some links to his work in the comments. You should read his books. I'll share audiobooks, but if you're able to subscribe to his channels and maybe support him in other ways as well, besides listening to audiobooks, which he might not directly derive support from. He perhaps doesn't need your support. I think he's retired and living on a pension. But nevertheless, he is one of very, very few serious thinkers living on this planet. Yeah, as I said, there's people who make a lot of noise. It sounds complicated, but it's bourgeois noise, and so should be disregarded. That's almost everyone in the Western world, right? Let's contrast this cybernetic socialism, an advanced computing run planned economy, which has been technically feasible for half a century, were it not for the fascistic forces undermining it at every turn, and undermining generally similarly good outcomes at every turn, to such a degree that the human race is now facing, within 5 years, runaway overheating that will lead potentially to the extinction of the human race, or if not the extinction of the human race, the death of many billions of people, principally darker-skinned people in the global south, basically at the hands of the U.S.-run fascist rules-based order. And that is, of course, a genocide consistent with the other genocides that the U.S. and Western fascist powers, the UK, most notably among those, have committed and continue to commit to this day. There's multiple genocides that are U.S.-run going on right now. People pretend that they're not, particularly as it's an election year, but of course they are. So let's talk about how advanced computing has potentially been used to achieve state socialist and ultimately techno-communist goals, like resource allocation and the betterment of humankind, and contrast that with the not inherently bourgeois concept of AI takeoff, but one that generally anyone who talks about an AI takeoff or a technological singularity is expressing bourgeois ideas. And again, these are Americans who talk about this, and you can't throw a frisbee in the United States and not hit a fascist piece of shit. There's how many people who aren't really fascists in the United States out of 300 million? A handful, less, 1 in 1,000 perhaps. Thinking of AI art and immersive experiences, we can like the AI network that I've described many times, AI agents working interoperably with human oversight to build a hybrid super intelligent framework. This is an idea that I haven't done this show in a few days for the main reason being I was kind of going down a rabbit hole of this recurring theme on this show, and I'm not going to get into it, but I am interested in developing an app for this with a modified open source pushing up to generally intelligent chatbot that users of this app would download on their computers, and then this would be a PC program, really, not an app in the way that it's used right now, although ultimately it would be. And this would allow for a novel kind of work product. And it's been on my mind lately, a city that I've wanted to spend time in, Mexico City, is facing a tremendous crisis that my city, Phoenix, struggles with and will probably face in a similar form, and that is millions of people going without sufficient running water. And as an example of what I think should be done with this kind of technology, I think that, say, 10,000 users or 30,000 users, a number that's generally held to be the number where an app becomes a viable product that will continue to function. But let's say 10,000 users, all using, these would be 10,000 people with, in all likelihood, with GPUs on their computer, which is not every computer, who are willing to spend some time when their computer is on every day running the GPU and this chatbot program, which is also not every computer. So getting to 10,000 would be a difficult thing. But imagine that 10,000 people whose basic work is answering yes or no emails, essentially throughout the day, click-through processes, could work with this hybrid superintelligence to, say, build a desalination plant of a novel design that could solve the problem for Mexico City of not having enough water. About 50% of the world's people live in cities pretty close proximity to the ocean, and a great many of them, like Phoenix or Mexico City, will face this same problem sooner rather than later of not having potable water. So I consider this a building of desalination. And the major problem with desalination, one major problem is waste. So you would perhaps need a way to filter the water, but release somewhat saltier water back into the ocean without leaving a huge pile of salty shit. So it would be a fairly complex kind of design. It would also have to be a pretty massive piece of machinery. This ultimately, when grand human challenges of this and greater scale are solved by techno-communists, not by capitalists who have made it, who've created these problems, then this same network technology will change the face of the arts as well. So AI can currently be used to create highly interactive, immersive experiences. engage with them on a daily basis. I'm a regular VR user. And imagine AI-generated landscapes that are able to respond and interact with user feelings, music that's able to adapt to player actions in a virtual world, the creation of a beautiful music on that quick click-through process principle, or collaborative art projects of other kinds taking place across a great space. And I wouldn't, even though I have said that the purpose of this technology should be on this cockshot, and I agree, the building of a humane and sustainable economic system. I think that the path to that may require inspiring people, and things like music can move people in ways that words sometimes do not. So this element of decentralization, such as it is, I don't like that word. I think it's mostly used as a weasel word to avoid concepts in... They already closed. They closed at 8. How you doing? It's used as a weasel word to avoid in the same sense that anarchism is a flawed ideology compared to cybernetic socialism or technocommunism. Anarchists and other ultra leftists will not brook the building of state socialism, despite the fact that state socialism and institutions built on this principle have doubled or tripled life expectancies, and most of the narratives around communism are nothing more than CIA talking points, fundamentally. Stalin was a bad guy. That no one believed that during Stalin's life. These are lies made up about Stalin. And why are these lies made up? Well, for this same reason, because the Soviet Union did in about 20 years what industrial capitalism had done in about 120 years, so 5 or 6 times faster, which is doubling a life expectancy and building a nation of engineers and scientists. So everything that you know, ordinary person, not a communist scholar, know about socialism and communism, for the most part, is informed by this calculated set of deceptions to make people disregard that mandate of leapfrogging in other places. Let's say a 5-year plan that produces that kind of result in 25 years. This should have happened on the African continent and other places, but it did not happen because of fascist violence and because of this set of fascist lies. So the world of art, in contrast to this set of concerns, is not terribly meaningful to a planet that's what art will not exist anymore in 5 years. What will art be in 5 years? It will be the art of a ghost. As the planet descends into a runaway overheating, capitalism's climate apocalypse, death spiral, if we do not destroy capitalism and fascism and imperialism, but also democratic socialists could, if they were in charge, which they're not in the fascist West, but people who still essentially are capitalists could still accomplish the necessaries of, say, banning fossil fuels and livestock systems, replacing livestock system products with facsimiles that taste the same. That's already the case. If those two sets of sectors were abolished, we would not be facing a capitalist climate apocalypse that will be inescapable in 5 years' time. We would break the window of the overheating car that is the habitat of humanity, and it might still be a little too hot, but what wouldn't happen was the genocide of billions in the global south that I mentioned. But nevertheless, I think it's of value to discuss the arts in this context because, again, the muse, as it strikes many millions or billions of people, might be the very thing that leads people to the ultimate defeat of fascistic forces. AI is, of course, able to today look at vast data sets, and that has produced artistic type works. AI art is a controversial word. You can search this on social media or other places and find hundreds and hundreds of articles about how bad and unfair it is, and it is bad and unfair. But I prefer to focus a little bit on other areas. If you are an organizer, bringing out lawsuits against AI art company owners on behalf of workers, I, of course, support you unequivocally. But my interest here is to discuss the possibility of new forms of art that might bring people to make a proper use of universal connectivity and advanced computing that's not occurring today, specifically because of the fascist West and because of tech people who are overwhelmingly in the fascist West techno-fascists. And they are building what could be described as a techno-feudalist system that's dropping a noose around your neck as we speak. There's many, many ways to look at this. One good way to look at it is, of course, to look at the use of killer robots and so-called AI in the context of the Israel and U.S. run Holocaust against Palestinians that's occurring in the last 150 days and for many, many years before. But in this last 150 days, planning AI planners like Palantir and others are using their skills to help commit genocides against a people with darker skin from the Middle East. And they're using literal killer robots in this context right now as well. This is what tech is. It's a fascistic horror unlike any other. But nevertheless, we can look at a deeper connection with more heartfelt and better conceived AI art, and again, forms that do not exist today, which could inspire humanity to begin to work together to common purpose. And a lot is said about the importance of human beings in this. Many people, humanists, will say that human intuition and human effort is the only thing that is important in creative processes and products. This is generally not a terribly meaningful thing to say. People might have said this about cinema. I want to see hand-drawn art. I don't want to see chemically reproduced images. And I'm certain they did. And it hasn't changed the impact of cinema, which is not uniformly positive. It's quite bad, really. But it's become the cinema of the West is bourgeois, and so it's garbage. Um, um, the outcome of the techno-communist cannot be achieved um, without a universal education of kind that does not exist in this world. Some countries make efforts to educate young people in defiance of bourgeois. A handful of countries, maybe 4 or 5 countries, make real efforts to educate young people and adults in defiance of bourgeois brainwashing. But those countries are relatively few and far between, and even that is not, and um, so I think of a young man named Aaron Bushnell who took his life just about 2 weeks ago in a protest action that's resonated with people around the world, particularly those who are not Western fascism sympathizers. And Bushnell was it's heartbreaking to watch that video, but also inspiring. Not hopefully inspiring you to take your life, but consider a parallel kind of thought. Knowing what we know about this 5 years before we reach runaway overheating, where there would be billions of deaths, if not all deaths, of human and other mammalian life. Why is there a single petroleum firm still standing with one brick upon another? How does that still exist in the West? How does that still exist in this world? Knowing what we know. Even those 4 countries that are doing an adequately good job of giving people a socialist training are not instilling people with the need for a revolutionary a mindset, or a cybernetic socialist or techno-communist mindset either. So this is, I guess, what I will leave you with now, because somehow all of you are going along with this hell world and telling yourself lies about how some technology, which are almost immediately debunked, right? A technology that will do carbon capture under any scrutiny. It's demonstrated that's not realistic. The realistic thing is to abolish the offending sectors. And there should be, in this world, there's a lot of people protesting right now, and they should be, but even larger number of people should be protesting this and taking actions well beyond protesting. As I mentioned, there should not be one brick upon another of any of these companies. You can look up their address, right? Shell Oil has headquarters. All of these companies have headquarters. People should be, a million people should be permanently bivouacked around each of these locations. And 10 million people should be permanently encamped outside of the White House. That would be an appropriate response to a dying humanity. But there's no such thing. That is the effect of something like Project Mockingbird, a very real set of phenomena wherein people are lulled by a siren song of bourgeois art and media into accepting fascistic forces, which are increasingly ecocidal.